teacher behavioral analysis. To start with, let me introduce to you the first one, the applied behavior analysis, or the ABA in education. So, applied behavior analysis is a scientific approach that examines the effects of instructional techniques on student behaviors. So, within educational settings, ABA emphasizes that the use of evidence based strategies to enhance learning outcomes is really um, effective. So, techniques such as reinforcement, shaping, and modeling are employed to encourage desirable behaviors and reduce the undesired ones. So the best example of this evidence-based strategies are what we are doing regularly before the class begins. Like the pretest, we in order to assess the learning competencies of our students, we tend to administer the pretest so that we might have a reinforcement to our students, um, so that we can identify what intervention are needed for that. So it improves student engagement and academic performance if this applied behavioral analysis will be really applied in our instruction. So the next one is the teacher training in applied behavioral analysis. So this is an effective implementation of ABA strategies necessitates comprehensive teacher training. Studies highlight the importance of equipping teachers with the skills to apply behavioral interventions effectively. So it's all about us, how, the faculty development, like attending seminars, so that us faculty will be equipped and will be capacitated on the teaching that we are engaged with. So training programs that focus on practical application, ongoing support, and feedback mechanism have been found to enhance teachers' proficiency in behavior management. So, training not only benefits students' behavior but also contributes to a more positive classroom environment. So, we are done with applied behavior analysis, teacher training in ABA, and the third one is the third teacher influence on student motivation and behavior. So,
Permanent.
research indicates that teacher behavior significantly impacts student motivation and classroom dynamics. So, it includes the feedbacking to all our activities for their improvement based on their performance. So, as a student or as a teacher, the more we give feedback in every activities, we really believe that our student learn from that. Even though it's a positive feedback or negative, in fact, learning really visible in the class. So the next one is the addressing implicit bias in teaching. So implicit biases held by teachers can inadvertently affect student experiences and outcomes. So example of this is to avoid comparison during the lecture or after the activity, or comparison between the capacity of the female and the male students that we have. Another example is giving or checking the essays. It is recommended that we should not look at the identity or the name of that, um, for example, an assessment, so that we cannot have a bias in checking. So we cannot have prior knowledge on who is that student being or that paper owned. So para hindi tayo magkaroon ng instant evaluation. Okay, so the fifth one is the behavioral skills training and teaching interaction procedure. So, behavioral skills training and teaching interaction procedure are structured methods used to teach social and behavioral skills. So, upon reading the content of this behavioral skills and teaching interaction procedure, I have learned and compare it as a special ingredient in a menu. For example, it's a salt because without BST and TIP, walang taste ang teaching natin. Walang taste ang teaching natin. Because BST is a skills acquisition through repeated practice. And TIP is importance of providing meaningful rationales for the behavior. So see how important it is as a teacher. So next one, let me give you the conclusion of this presentation. The teacher behavior analysis encompasses various strategies. So meron tayong ganyan, no? Alhamdulillah for having that. And consideration aimed at enhancing educational outcomes. And yes, we are really welcome and dreaming for a lot of strategies to enhance our educational outcomes and our strategies by integrating ABA principles, providing targeted teacher training, acknowledging the influence of teacher behaviors on student motivation, addressing implicit biases, and employing structured teaching methods like the BST and TIP. Educators, this is very important, can create more effective and inclusive learning environments. So I hope we learned from that presentation. I hope we were reminded of our tasks in every day. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share this to you.
Wow. Another one of the the well explained topics. No? And thank you again for finishing on time. That is a great help to us. And that is very insightful, Miss Daglock. And effective PE teachers, yes, demonstrate clear communication, positive reinforcement, and adaptability. That is true. They model skills accurately and provide timely feedback, as what Ma'am Daglock said, and use inclusive strategies to engage all learners. And good PE instruction also reflects it also reflects the classroom management, the enthusiasm, and the ability to modify activities based on the students' progress and needs. And we often focus on lesson plans, but how we carry ourselves while teaching sends just a strong message to our learners, to the audience. And that is a very timely reminder. Thank you for that again to Miss Daglock. Now, allow me to wear a different hat and speak briefly on technology and instruction in physical education. So, this is the fourth session. The expert talks on technology and instruction in physical education. Now, good day to everyone again. I am honored to be part of this panel to discuss a topic that is not only timely, but also transformative, which is technology and instruction in physical education. As we continue to evolve in the digital age, the integration of technology in physical education or PE is no longer an option. It is a necessity. Again, it is no longer an option. It is already part, no? And the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated this shift. And today we see how digital tools are reshaping, no? It is reshaping the way we teach movement, health, and fitness. Now, the question is, why does technology matter in PE? Traditionally, sorry, I forgot to time myself.
I will be the one.
I-time mo, ma'am.
Okay, where was I? Traditionally, PE classes have been associated with physical spaces like the gymnasium, fields, and courts. But with the rise of edtech or education and technology, PE can now extend beyond the classroom and into students' homes, devices, and even daily routines. And I think that is also true with us teachers. And according to Casey et al., technology in PE supports personalized learning. That is true. And real time feedback and increased engagement. And when used effectively, it helps us shift from one size fits all approach to a more student centered approach and data informed practice. I hope that is clear. Next, we have the real world tools and strategies. We have here the wearable technology, the mobile apps, and the video based learning, and lastly, learning management systems or LMS. For the wearable technology, I have one example here in which my student was previously unmotivated, became more engaged after seeing how her daily step count. So that is very basic, but it helped her increase her step count, no, because she is motivated with the technology that she has. She began setting personal goals, and that is something I think that wouldn't have been possible without the data provided by her device. Now, for the mobile apps and video-based learning, we have here the Nike Training, MyFitnessPal. I personally use MyFitnessPal and Nike Training Club, also Strava, to track my running. One example for this is during the pandemic, I asked students to perform agility drills at home using cones that are not only helpful to the environment, it's sustainable. Yeah. Um, I made them use cones made out of plastic bottles. I hope you are with me now with using plastic bottles as cones. And they submitted recordings through Google Classroom, and I gave them annotated video feedback. Sometimes we do it online too. We talk one by one, and it is a practice inspired by the flipped learning strategies by Bergman and Sams. Although I know that when you think of it, it takes too much time, but we have to adapt. Lastly, we have the LMS, or the Learning Management System. Personally, in our school, we use Moodle and Google Classroom, but as of this moment, we focused on Google Classroom because Moodle is very expensive. No, we already are paying for the Google accounts, so we focused on using the Google Classroom. Next are the challenges and ethical considerations. Of course, technology is not a magic solution. There are limits, there are barriers. In the digital divide, some students are they lack access to smartphones, wearables, and stable internet. So that is one thing that we should consider in applying the technology in our class. And for the data privacy, when collecting health, when we are going to collect health or fitness data, we must ensure ethical handling of personal information. We are not in any way allowed to post it online to make fun of it. No, because others are using it as part of their reels, to gain more views, no, and that is not good. And lastly, authenticity of participation. So how do we verify that students are genuinely doing the physical tasks? So that is one thing that we should consider. And to address these, I emphasize flexibility, creativity, and a trust-based assessment. Although it's a bit risky, but when you are teaching in a state university, especially me, I teach around 10 sections, that is 20 units, plus my designation, and every section is 50 plus students. I know you are with me. You know my sentiments. And yeah, next, we have the intellectual property and PA resources. And again, I would like to reiterate that since I am the IP education chairperson of our campus, I also advocate for awareness of intellectual property rights. We do this on a monthly basis, internal and external. We do awareness with our external partners and other, even with our own students. So, for instance, we encourage students to cite sources properly in their video presentations and respect the copyright of music used in fitness routines. And okay, moving forward, technology will continue to grow. No, it will play a pivotal role in physical education, but it is not just about gadgets. No, it is not just about the technology that we have. It is about pedagogical innovation. Again, pedagogical innovation, equity, and engagement. And to be effective, to be fair, we must align tech use with learning outcomes. Hindi pwedeng gagamit tayo ng technology just because we have it. No, me personally, I have technology I can use, but sometimes I do not use it because my students cannot relate, and it is no longer part of the curriculum. And we must also promote digital literacy in both teachers and students. Hindi pwedeng si students lang, dapat si teacher din. Encourage interdisciplinary collaboration, bringing in insights from fields like media arts, health sciences, and ICT. And for the conclusion, technology in PE is a tool. Remember this, everyone, my classmates. Technology in PE is not a tool. It is a tool. It is not a replacement of us. No, same with AI. It is not a replacement of how we think. Dapat tayo din yung magda-drive with AI if you are going to use AI, by the way. And it should enhance movement and not replace it. Hindi pwedeng si student mag-submit sa atin ng AI-generated movements. Di ba? Pwede na ngayon. And as educators, it is our role to find that balance, blending human connection with digital precision. Thank you, and I look forward to the rest of the discussion. Okay, so let me switch back um, to my role as the moderator. Okay, there you go. Sige, so thank you for allowing me to share. And as we've seen from all the themes today, whether it's our style, our structure, or our behavior or tools as a teacher, intentionality is key. Now let's move over with the synthesis and connecting the themes. So our main theme again was, let's go back here. Uy, ang layo na. So instructional behavior and pedagogical theory. Sige, so bringing it all together, today's discussion reminds us that instruction is not a fixed formula. It's a dynamic blend of personal connections, structured planning, reflective behaviors, and purposeful technology use. Our students deserve this kind of thoughtful and responsive teaching. For the Q&A, I think we already have questions here on our comment section. Wala pa pala. So I think it would be best to ask questions because our experts here are really experts on their field. And it is widely known that in a panel discussion, it is very important that you ask the experts because if the experts will ask you, syempre, it is better that it comes from the experts, not the answer. Sige, do we have questions here? Okay, yes, Mr. Jimmy.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
And Group 2, good afternoon.
Good
So
afternoon.
this is not a question actually. This is just asking for opinion from the expert. So I would like to ask this question to the first reporter, Ma'am Bautista po.
Okay,
So,
sir.
Ma'am Cherry, in your own point of view, what is likely the best teaching style or model in teaching physical education po?
Thank you, Sir Jimmy, for that inquiry. So for me, no, there is no structured teaching style talaga because we are also considering the skills level, no, the readiness of the student in terms of doing the activities. Your skills also, your readiness of doing the or interchanging your teaching styles. I think, no, in physical education, effective teaching requires a flexible approach that strategically shifts between teacher-centered and student-centered methods. Now, this is for us to accommodate diverse class sizes, especially that physical education is very active, no, authentic in nature. We need to be employing a teacher-centered teaching style first because we need to set rules in order for us to have the safety while we are doing all the physical activities, and at the same time, after having the authority of setting the rules, we are gradually, leaving the process with the students so they can explore, the different physical activities, in what activities that they are good at, what activities that they need to improve, and whichever is that, no, we should always end up with a thought that your PE or your teaching styles should be planned before, beforehand, or before performing, before implementing the curriculum.
Are you satisfied with that answer?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ma'am Cherry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that insightful answer, Ma'am Cherry. I would like to remind everyone that we are only going to cater at most 5 questions so that we can finish before 1 p.m. Thank you so much. Now we have a question here for Ma'am Cherry. Sige. Since Ma'am Cherry is already done answering, let's give a chance to questions catered to Miss Cadiz. Sige, Mr. J. Carlo Bagayas.
Hello po, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Opo, this is a question to, in particular, to Ma'am Cadiz po in the topic of instructional strategies.
Mhm.
What are some effective instructional strategies for engaging students who are not naturally inclined towards physical activity or sports po?
Ma'am Cadiz.
Okay. Again, sir, the question is, what are some
Some
effective, no,
effective
instructional strategies for engaging students? So one of my choice is the choice-based activities, which is integrate fitness games over competition, and apply goal setting also, and personal best tracking. So incorporating music, gamification, apps like a dance or fit quest and peer support system also encourages participation among reluctant students. So another one is to engage students who are not naturally inclined toward physical activity, sir, or in sports. So PE can use fun, inclusive, and non-competitive instructional strategies. So for example, sir, incorporating dance routines like Zumba or simple fitness games can make movement enjoyable without emphasizing athletic skill. So offering choices also, such as walking, yoga, or recreational games allow students to find activities they are comfortable with. So, as teachers, no, can also set individual fitness goals. So, such as improving flexibility or endurance rather than focusing on performance in sport. And also, positive reinforcement, sir. And we also have peer support, further help build confidence. So for instance, praising a student, no, uh, di natin kalimutan how to praise student about their effort in stretching routine or collaborative relay can make them feel valued and motivated to participate.
Are you
Yes po, I'm satisfied po, Sir Leonard. Thank you so much po sa response.
Thank you, Sir Jay.
we still have 2 questions here catered to be catered by Mr. Carillo and I think from Dr. Joanne Solomon. I think this question will be answered by Ma'am City. So before we proceed to Ma'am City, I think I would like to answer first the question from Miss Gonzaga. What criteria do you use to determine whether a new technology tool truly adds value to student learning in PE? I think this is my personal take, okay, and based on experience. When evaluating a new technology in physical education, I think it is important to ensure it aligns. That is the one thing that we should always consider. It aligns with the learning outcomes. It enhances student engagement. We feel that we can see that the engagement is there and it supports inclusivity. Hindi pwedeng si group A lang ang pwede nito, si group B lang. So it should be inclusive. And effective tools help students improve skills, fitness, and I think understanding, and while also making learning enjoyable. Now, that is the most important thing, especially through gamification or personalized features. Lastly, the tool should be accessible to all learners. No, it provides meaningful feedback or assessment data, and it should integrate easily into existing routines without disrupting, no, again, without disrupting activity time. And lastly, I think it should be the cost effectiveness of the tool that we are using. And because overall, technology must serve as a clear educational purpose and support better teaching and learning in PE. Yun lang po yung, I think, should be the best criteria I can think of when determining that the new technology adds value to the learning of the audience or the students. So
Sir,
yes, ma'am, Doc.
I would like to add, okay,
Yes, Doc.
based on the the one that you provided, no,
Mhm.
regarding criteria. I think there is also a need for the school to take into consideration the capability of the teachers and that of the students. It may be, or it might be, the technology that you would like to use. Students do not have the capacity or the ability to perform using those technology, which is impossible nowadays because our students are better compared to us. But you have also to look into the ability or the capacity of the teacher so that this will be your basis for capacity building. Okay, so you really have to train teachers on how to use the technology so that they would end up effective in the classroom. Next thing is you have also to take into consideration whether resources are available. Baka naman you're dreaming of something and yet the school cannot support you in terms of resources. Okay? Hindi kasi lahat ng mga schools may kakayahan to obtain and use particular technology, taking into consideration that it means cost. Diba? So therefore, as head, as administrator, you have to see to it that you do have the resources, both the human resources and the technology itself and the money to avail of the resource, not to acquire the resources rather. Okay? Kasi baka naman mamaya ikaw alam mo pero yung iba hindi, or kaya mo pero walang available na fund ang school to purchase the said. And it requires internet connection, right? So do you think the school can provide the student tree, the entire campus, a very good Wi-Fi or internet connection so that they could make use of those technology? O baka hindi kaya, no? Kasi yung internet connection ninyo dapat hanggang administration lang, na hindi pa siya campus-wide, or kung campus-wide man siya, ano ba ang capacity, okay, yung bandwidth niya to make sure na it will accommodate all of the students and all of the teachers. Okay, so those are just some of the considerations that you have to take into in deciding what particular type of technology you're going to use in curriculum and instruction.
Okay, exactly, Doc. Thank you so much. No, I completely agree with what was said. No, while it is true that many of our students today are more technologically skilled, we cannot overlook the importance of assessing our teachers as well. We should capacitate them, but the real question is our school willing to do that? No, that is one thing we should ponder. No, sige, for our last question addressed to Ma'am City, what criteria do you no, sorry. How does teacher behavior analysis influence decision making and curriculum design and enhancement? Ma'am City.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Carillo. Thank you, Doc, for throwing the question po. So, we all know that teacher behavior analysis is very vital. So, because teacher behavior analysis informs decision-making and curriculum design, I have three po. Identifying effective teaching practices. Number two is addressing gaps between instruction, methods, and learning goals. And number three is guiding improvements so that it will enhance the student outcomes po.
Okay, so thank you. There is also a need to encourage reflecting practice. Okay, now reflective practice That is, encourage teachers to assess themselves and reflect on the instructional style and classroom dynamics that they are actually having. That is why importante po ang post-conference, no, after classroom observation, so that more or less you could provide teachers feedback regarding instructional behavior. Okay, how are they performing in the class vis-a-vis the style, the atmosphere in the classroom, the processes and the procedures in the classroom, and so on. Okay, so that is very important because this will provide them a chance to do or practice reflection. Okay, and importante siya because if they will not acknowledge their limitations, chances are they could not also grow professionally and personally. So kailangan yun siya, no? Yung allow them to practice reflection. So yung reflective practice, kailangan siya. And for the administrator, this can be a very good data, no? For you to determine what particular type of training you're going to provide your teachers or what particular type of area or which area are you going to pinpoint for them to improve. Okay, so it's the administration actually, the head together with the other or the HR if you do have the HR, who will actually determine the in-service training that you're going to provide to the teachers, right? Though in some point we tend to conduct needs analysis, no? Teachers needs analysis, but the result of the classroom observation and the instructional behavior analysis could also help the administration determine what type of capacity building you're going to provide to the teachers in order for them to improve and to become effective in the classroom. Okay, so thank you, Ma'am City, for sharing and providing us input on the influence of teacher behavior analysis in decision making and in curriculum design and enhancement.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doc. And thank you so much, Ma'am City, for your answer. And yes, self-awareness is key. No, as teachers as well, we should also reflect on ourselves. Hindi pwedeng nasabihan, magagalit. No, we should be aware of ourselves as well. And before we end, may I ask each panelist for a quick final takeaway, starting from Miss Bautista. Ma'am Cherry?
Okay, so I would just like to leave everyone that in order for us to teach our student, um we do not show the abilities that we have or the skills that we have as PE teachers because it will just intimidate them. We as PE teachers should be able, no, to determine which of the student needs more attention in terms of um, promoting physical literacy. And by identifying that, we can always adjust our teaching styles aligned with the national standards. So that at the end of the day, we can say that our students did not just dance or play the games that we have provided. We already have given them the channels for them to continue, whatever they have learned inside the classroom.
Okay, Miss Cadiz.
Okay, so let's instructional strategies guide your teaching methods, but never forget that your students, how they learn, move, and grow are your true focus. So, applying these strategies like cooperative learning, scaffolding, or differentiated instruction, the teacher must prioritize the individual needs and development for each student. So in PE class, teacher might plan fitness circuit using strategy and station learning. However, if a student is recovering from injury or struggles with coordination, the teacher adjusts the activity so that can still participate meaningfully. So this show that while the strategy provides structure, the heart of teaching remains centered on supporting each student's physical and personal growth.
Thank you for that. Now for our third final message, Ms. Daglok.
Okay, thank you, Sir Carillo. So my final message is teacher behavior analysis is like a mirror. It's a it is us, no? It is us. So I just would like to share a very short line on how to remember what teacher behavioral analysis is. Okay, so this is it. Observe yourself. Okay, observe yourself because I believe, and we should really believe, that your behavior is part of the curriculum. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That is very deep. No, that is very deep to hear from you. For me, let us use technology with empathy and purpose. No, we should have a purpose in using it. And tools don't replace teachers. They should support us. No, it should not replace us. Again and again, I would like to. Yes, Doc.
You finished first. You complete your thoughts.
Um, that's it. And they should support us. And for our closing, thank you once again to all our panelists and our participants. We hope today's conversation sparked reflection, no reflection and inspiration. And as we continue to evolve in education, we should be. May we never stop learning ourselves. No, it should be continuous. And time check, we finished 1 hour. And until next time, keep teaching with intention and connection. And have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations to Group 2 for a very meaningful, no, and substantial discussion. It allows us to understand what is the topic all about. At the same time, provided us a very comprehensive discussion, no. Though short siya, pero it's actually substantial. It captures what is actually necessary. Okay, so to end up the Group 2's discussion, I would like also to remind everyone that we are all teaching students. We are not teaching subjects, no? So therefore, we're not teaching PE, we are not teaching health, we're not teaching music. We're teaching children. We are teaching students. So let's go out, make a difference, ensure that we create a very meaningful learning experience to our students, impacting lives, not just test scores or grades. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for Group 2. So we're done with Group 2. Ang galing naman ng panel discussion, parang mga totoong talagang mga panel discussion. No? Okay, ang galing ninyo.
Thank you.
So para nakikita ko na kayang-kaya natin ito. So sinong nagsasabi na ang PE teacher ay hindi magaling? Tingnan nito mga estudyante ko. Ang gagaling, no? Sige. So, okay, thank you. Thank you. Group 1, Group 2, we're done. Let's move now with the third group. Okay, so take it away, third group. We're going to discuss critical issues in curriculum and instruction and PE with 4 experts. Pero ang kanila ay mini debate. Sige nga, tingnan natin yung mga mini debate.
Yes, thank you, Doc. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay pa ba tayo lahat? Okay,
Excited na yan sila, ma'am. Doon sa counter
and
argument mamaya.
the assigned method for our group would be the mini debate. So are you ready to debate? Charot. Okay. So with me, we have Miss Anne-Lorraine de la Cruz, Mr. James Lloyd Jokson, and
Regina.
Miss
Ma'am Regina.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Doc.
Correct sa nato, ma'am. Dili ko PhD. ED po.
Ay,
Baka, ma'am,
okay. So,
kasi data privacy
Doc,
tabi, ma'am.
Ma'am
Sige po.
Lorraine, kindly edit po.
Check na lang po.
Okay.
Okay, you may proceed.
Okay, so good day everyone and welcome to our academic mini debate. As your moderator for this afternoon, it is my honor to guide today's intellectual exchange of ideas. This forum serves
Sino
not
po ang
only
nagatime,
as a
ano
platform,
ma'am, kumukuha ng
meron po
time?
ma'am,
Okay.
Art. Yes ma'am. Okay, this forum serves not only as a platform for presenting arguments, but also an opportunity, to practice respectful discourse, critical thinking, and active listening. So each side later will be given an equal time to express their viewpoints and present evidences on today's thought-provoking topic. Let us keep the discussion engaging, respectful, and grounded in logic as we explore diverse perspectives, and deepen our understanding of the issue at hand. Next slide, please. So the main topic that we have this afternoon is on the critical issues in curriculum and instruction in physical education. So we have 4 subtopics and we have 4 questions, no, to argue, and of course of each side. Then we have to have our debate run smoothly, then are going to set guidelines. Set one, we have before starting, we have to make sure, that each side have to understand that they need to present their ideas, their point of view in 3 to 5 minutes per side. So we have the pro side and the con side. No interruptions during arguments, respectful tone and language at all times. Then we have the moderator will introduce later the topic. Okay, each side should follow the 3-part format. No, so we have the introduction. So you have to start with the introduction, stating your position and outline key arguments, then followed by the argumentation. So you have to present the evidences, the examples, and the reasoning, and then end with a conclusion, summarize points, and reinforce your stance. Okay. Now, the rebuttals is optional. So we decided the group 3, we will not include the rebuttal later on. So to start with, group 3 will have the debate on the first topic, and the following topics on topic 2, 3, and 4, we will request, the audience to take part of the to the debate later on. Okay, so before we begin, let me call, the side for, by the way, the topic, the question rather will be focusing on, should diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, be explicitly integrated into the physical education curriculum. Okay, so we have, may I call the pro side or the affirmative side, Miss Lorraine, Anne Lorraine de la Cruz, and Mr. James Lloyd Duxon, and the con side, or the negative side, yours truly, and Miss Louise Claudette Dicase. So we have this. We are very fortunate to have these 2 distinguished participants, debating the issue on the diversity, equity, and inclusion in the physical education curriculum. So we will have the pro side and the con side, and of course, both bring extensive academic and practical expertise to this discussion. Now, to start the debate, we have, or may I call, the opening statement for the affirmative side.
Okay, so good day, everyone. We affirm the belief that diversity, equity, and inclusion should be embedded within the physical education curriculum. In today's global and multicultural world, the education, especially physical education, must ensure that all learners, regardless of their race, their gender, their ability, or their background, feel represented, respected, and empowered. So, by integrating the DEI into physical education, we are not only acknowledging the diverse identities of our students, but also creating an environment where everyone has the opportunity to participate, to excel, and to enjoy learning. And PE has the power to influence how students view themselves and others.
You mean it to the art? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, Ma'am Rain. And we are advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion in PE curriculum. But we have to understand that there is no exact perfect process in teaching and planning. There's always a room for improvement. However, a diverse PE curriculum respects cultural differences in physical activity, especially that these students are gathered in one room with different beliefs and practices, considering them encourage participation from all of the students. For instance, in teaching dance and recognizing traditional dances, allow me to share. In the current update of the Philippine Folk Dance Society, promotes that promotes not to use the term indigenous dance anymore, but instead to use the name in which the dance is classified. Example, if the dance is Igorot dance, then we should teach and use the term we are teaching an Igorot dance. Similar with the Muslim dance. We all know that Muslim are have different tribes, and we need to be specific. Example, if we are teaching Itausug dance, let's introduce the term to our students that it is Itausug dance or a Maranao dance, and etc. By recognizing this, it boosts the motivation to learning, especially when they are being recognized. Also, not just in the dance area, but also in games or inclusive team activities. This can be validated in different cultural experiences and makes them feel the sense of belongingness. Um, then we have here the equity. Equity should also be integrated since it ensures that resources, teaching strategies, and expectations are blended together so that the students can succeed, not just those who fit in the athletic mold. This also supports the students with disabilities, different body types, as what Mom Cherry mentioned earlier, that catering varied skill levels, creating a space where no one is left behind. This also supports the students with disabilities, different body types. That's what I mentioned earlier. And for the last is the DEI, the inclusion in PE. The inclusion in PE curriculum promotes the empathy, the cooperation, and the respect. The students learn to work with peers with all abilities and backgrounds, preparing them for a diverse real world environment. Therefore, integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion is essential to ensure that all students, regardless of their abilities and backgrounds or identities, have equitable opportunities to participate, promoting inclusivity and mutual respect, cultural awareness, and lifelong engagement in physical activity. Thank you so much, Ma'am Reg.
Okay, thank you very much, Lorraine. So we appreciate your insights as the affirmative side. So let's move now to the opening statement, no, from the opposing side, questioning the diversity, equity, and the inclusiveness in education curriculum. So may I call on Miss Louise Claudette to have the opening statement.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me? Marinig po ba ako, ma'am?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes po.
Okay. Sige, good afternoon once again. Well, while we fully support the values of fairness, respect, and dignity for all students, we stand in opposition to any form of discrimination against students based on their race,
Parang nawala.
Nawala ka, Ma'am Claudette.
shadowed when DE becomes a dominant theme. Hello, everyone. Parang nawala ako. Ulitin ko.
Nawala ka. Sige, ma'am. Continue po.
Just turn off my camera po. Sige po. Again, the original and essential goal of PE is to develop physical fitness, motor skills, cooperation, and lifelong healthy habits. And these are being overshadowed when DEI becomes a dominant theme. Education should be holistic. Yes, we agree with that. But not at the cost of effective overloading PE with sociopolitical layers risk diluting its core purpose and limiting the student in achieving physical wellness and performance.
Okay,
Ma'am
thank you,
Rage?
Ma'am Claudette. As to yeah, as to the conside, no, on questioning the DEI emphasis in physical education curriculum. So my point here is the physical education time is already limited. So we all know that we are only given limited time in the physical education curriculum. Now, if we want to focus on the DEI issues, this might be detract, no, from the essential focus that we have on the motor skills training, on the physical literacy, and even the cardiovascular fitness, which these areas where many students already struggle. My second point here is we all know, no, that the current physical education framework is already accommodates flexibility and fairness of all students. So why not we have to include this, no, mandating formal DEI components that would impose unnecessary burdens on educators, no, as physical educators, and really reduce their autonomy. My third point here is the overemphasis, no, on DEI may unintentionally shift attention away from the values of teamwork, which we focus in physical education, discipline, and which already inclusive by nature in the physical education curriculum. So PE should be unifying experience that encourages students to work together regardless of the background rather than segmenting students on the identity markers. So, and last point, to our this side, empirical evidence we can observe now, no, the effectiveness to support the effectiveness of this intensive AI integration in physical education. So still said, no, without clear and durable outcomes, these initiatives risk being performative rather than truly a transformative, and of course that really evidence-based in the physical education strategy. Thank you very much.
Yes, Ma'am Regine, I agree. And in conclusion, while we respect fairness, inclusion in education, we strongly caution against the excessive integration of DI frameworks into PE curriculum. Again, PE's primary mission is to develop students' physical health, motor skills, fitness, and cooperation through active learning, not to serve as a platform for continuous ideological or identity-based discourse. Remember, there are current policies such as DepEd Order number 21 series of 2019 that allows already ensures inclusivity and learner-centered approaches across all subjects, including PE, without requiring each subject to carry explicit socio-political instruction. And furthermore, RA 10533 or Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013 emphasizes contextualization and flexibility, empowering teachers to naturally adapt lessons to diverse needs without mandating a uniform DI overlay on all activities. And instead of overloading PE with identity-based themes, let us protect its neutral, skill-focused learning space where students can build healthy habits, resilience, and cooperation. Again, let PE remain a field of movement, unity, and strength, not an ideological overreach. Thank you so much.
Okay, very well said, Ma'am Claudette. So that was the first round of our debate on the first topic on the DEI, or the diversity, equity, and inclusion in the physical education curriculum. Now let's proceed to the next round on topic 2 on the culturally responsive pedagogy in the physical education curriculum. So we are now opening um, for the audience participation. So we will have the affirmative side, no, pro side, and the negative or the con side. So may we invite Mr. Earl and Mr. Leonard to be what is your side, sirs?
I would like,
Affirmative?
yeah.
Okay.
Both, Misa,
So
affirmative, ma'am,
the
or
Kami
yes, the two of you will be in the affirmative side,
all
and
right.
we will the negative side or the con side. Anybody? Okay, any volunteer?
I think, ma'am, we have to choose from our
Yes,
classmates. Maganda
yes po.
si Sir Romero. I think Sir Romero can have. And si Ma'am Jawairia.
Yes po. So, are you okay to be part of the con side, Ma'am and Sir? Richard and Ma'am Juwari? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Sure po.
Thank
Change
you, Ma'am
connectivity
Ju.
lang. Brown out kasi.
Okay, how about Sir Richard?
I'm okay with that, but Ma'am Red.
Thank you, Sir Richard. Okay. So, before we will begin, let me um, orient you first, no, on our guidelines on the parts that you're going to present. So, um, each side has two members, right? So one of you will present the opening statements or the introduction, followed by the arguments, okay? And then end with the conclusion later on, okay? So same through with the negative side or the con side. Now, our topic is, or the question for this topic too would be, should culturally responsive pedagogy be implemented in PE curriculum? Let me start with calling the affirmative side, Mr. Earl, as the opening statement.
Oh, wait, okay. Good day, everyone. We strongly support the integration of culturally responsive pedagogy in the physical education curriculum. As our classrooms grow more diverse, it is crucial that PE, like all subjects, reflects and respects the varied cultural backgrounds of our students. PE should not just be about physical skills, but also about inclusivity, identity, and community.
And for our first argument, I would like to by the way, good day to the esteemed judges. First, incorporating culturally responsive teaching in PE enhances, no, it enhances engagement and participation, and students are more likely to be active when they see their cultural practices represented, no, whether through traditional dances, indigenous games, or culturally meaningful sports activities, and that is according to Flory and McCautry 2011. Second, let us be reminded that this approach fosters a sense of belonging, and culturally inclusive PE environments promote mutual respect. Let us remember that mutual respect. It reduces bias and help dismantle stereotypes. And this allows every learner to thrive regardless of background and ability. Third, 3 minutes. Third, culturally responsive pedagogy equips PE teachers to be more effective in managing diverse classrooms by being aware of cultural norms uh, and by being aware of cultural norms around gender roles, body image, or modesty. Teachers, no, us teachers can make appropriate adjustments to ensure comfort and fairness in all physical activities.
All right. So, in conclusion, we believe that applying culturally responsive pedagogy in PE enriches learning, builds inclusive school culture, and affirms students' identities. And it is not just a teaching strategy, it is an ethical commitment to equitable and meaningful education. So that's it, Ma'am
Thank
Reg.
you very much, Mr. Earl. We will now proceed to the opposing side or the con side. So I'd like to invite the group of Mr. Richard Romero and Ma'am Juwaria.
Yes, doc. Yes, ma'am. So, sorry nawala ako. So, thank you. While we value diversity, am I audible po?
Baho.
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Ma'am Joy.
Sorry
Yes,
kasi
ma'am. Very
malakas
clear.
na ulan dito. So, while we value diversity and respect, we oppose the formal integration of culturally responsive pedagogy in the PE curriculum. As physical education should focus only on developing physical fitness, motor skills, and sportsmanship, and not become an arena for cultural or ideological agendas. Let's say, for example, uh, the uh, the focus on universal physical skills. So its main goal is to develop physical competence, fitness, and lifelong habits like those skills of running, jumping, um, that which should be prioritized. Also, the time and curriculum constraints. So PE class often have limited time. Sometimes only 1 to 2 sessions per week, tapos 1 hour or 2 hours lang. Incorporating culturally specific lessons may reduce the time on essential physical activity with rising concerns about childhood obesity and inactivity, and every minute should prioritize movement, not discussions or cultural adaptations. That's all.
Okay, so may we call now Mr. Richard Romero for the argument?
All right. So for our first argument, so first is that PE or the physical education is time is limited. So introducing culturally specific content may also reduce opportunities for the students to master essential physical skills and movement competencies that form for foundation of a healthy lifestyle. And on the second argument that we have, I believe that the concept of cultural responsiveness in a physical education is also often vague and also difficult to implement consistently. And as well as teachers may also struggle to balance multiple cultural expectations, leading to confusions or even conflict among students and as well as for the parents. On the third argument that we have, I believe that physical activity is also a universal human experience. So overemphasizing as well the cultural differences may unintentionally segregate rather than unify students. And a well-rounded, inclusive physical education curriculum can also lead or already foster respect and also teamwork without labeling activities through cultural lenses. I believe that's all our argument. Thank you.
Okay. So, do you have any concluding statement, sir and ma'am, for the opposing side?
Yes, Ma'am Reg.
Yes, you
So,
are given 1 minute for po.
yes.
Thank you.
So in summary, while while cultural respect should be present in all teaching, making culturally responsive pedagogy a core requirement in physical education risks its purpose. So let PE or let PE physical education remain focused on on the development of the dimensions and fun for all without the added pressure of meeting a much complex cultural expectations.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Juaria. Very well said, and thank you for your insights, no, to the topic 2 on cultural responsive pedagogy. So, okay, we will now proceed to the topic 3. Any volunteers for the we need 4.
Ma'am, I think si Sir Earl is raising his hand.
See?
Parang hindi pa yan nababa,
Sorry,
ma'am.
sorry.
It's okay, sir.
Now we are now in topic 3, ladies and gentlemen. So we need 4 participants for this debate. So for topic 3, who would like to be part of the affirmative or pro side and for the con? Anybody? Okay. We have Mr. Lover John Gaspar. What side are you going to participate, Mr. Lover John?
I'll go with the pro side, ma'am.
The pro side. Okay. Who will be with you, sir?
What about Sir Jmar? Affirmative?
Yeah, Sir
Negative?
Sir Jmar is group 3. Sorry. Yeah, Sir Jmar, would you like to be with Sir Gaspar?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have 2 raised hands here. Mr. Chris. Sir Chris, would you like to be in the con side?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Ma'am Genevieve.
Social culture.
Jenny.
Pro side po.
Ma'am, pro side. Okay.
Tama na yung dalawa,
So
ma'am.
we have...
Maubusan ka ng time.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Doc. Okay, so we have already identified the pro side. No, we have Mr. R and Mr. Mari Ponte, and we have for the con side we have Mr. Chris. And would you like to be with Sir Chris, Ma'am
Okay lang
Ma'am
po. Yes
Jen?
po.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, so I'd like to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, our participants for this mini debate on the topic 3, gender and social cultural influences. So we'll really dig into the question of should gender and socio-cultural influences be explicitly addressed in the physical education curriculum. So I'd like to invite the affirmative side to start with the opening statement. You are given only 5 minutes to present, to have the opening statement and the argument. Take it away, sir.
Once again, good afternoon, everyone. In our Go back with the question about should gender and social cultural influences be explicitly addressed in PE curriculum. We, the pro side, is in favor of addressing gender and social cultural influences. We strongly affirm that gender and sociocultural influences should be explicitly addressed in PE curriculum. Physical education is not just about physical fitness. It is about fostering inclusive environments where every student, regardless of genders, background, or belief, feels seen, valued, and encouraged to participate.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir. We will now proceed to the argument, no, for your argument in your affirmative side.
Okay, good
Sir?
afternoon. Good afternoon, ma'am. Can you hear me? All right. Okay. To proceed with an argument, in favor of addressing the gender and social cultural influences. First of our argument is in acknowledging the gender and social cultural factors in PE will help breaking down these barriers that discourage what we call participation. Research shows, especially in the research of Kirk on 2010, especially on the girls, the LGBTQ plus students, and those who are from the what we call minority groups often feel excluded or judged on traditional PE settings. Second, when we PE teachers understand the cultural gender related norms, they can adapt activities or we can adapt activities to ensure comfort and equity to our students. For example, some of our students may require modest attire or gender sensitive grouping to participate fully and confidently. The last argument in our group is in addressing these influences direct will directly promotes empathy and respect by integrating these discussions and practices that value the diversity. The PE curriculum can help reduce the bullying, challenge stereotypes, and promote a more supportive environment for all learners. And that's all of our argument, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sirs, for your insights. We will now, later on, we will have the conclusion after the two sides presented. So let's move on to the negative side or the con side. May we call on the group of Mr. Chris and Miss Jen, who will start as for the opening statement.
Good morning, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes po.
Okay. So on the negative side, the question is that should gender and social cultural influences be explicitly addressed in the PE curriculum? It should never be addressed. Why? Because gender and social cultural are uh, different factors in the physical education curriculum. So one thing to that is that the reinforcement would will be harmful and it can cause stereotypes and gender norms against students. Another is that it will reduce self-confidence and body image issues will arise. Another is that it will narrow the skill development of the students, and at the same time it can cause public embarrassment at the and that it will also reduce engagement and lifelong physical activities to those students. It because is because gender and social cultural influences are big factors to physical education. That's it now.
Okay, good afternoon once again. So for our first argument, first, addressing too many sociocultural considerations risk turning PE into a forum for sensitive or divisive issues, so which could create discomfort among students or even undermine the classroom unity. And second, teachers may not be fully trained or equipped to navigate the complexities of gender identity or the cultural expectations, could lead to inconsistent practices or unintentional offense. And the third one is a neutral skill based approach already allows for flexibility. So PE teachers can promote respect and inclusion through their conduct and grouping strategies without making gender and culture the center of instruction. That's it for our argument.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So we will now proceed no, uh, to the conclusion. May we call the affirmative side for the conclusion, and this will be followed by the conclusion also of the negative side. Um, can we call Mr. Loverjohn?
So once again, in conclusion, uh, with our side in favor of addressing gender and social-cultural influences, um, a modern and equitable PE curriculum must go beyond physical skills. It must students face. Addressing gender and social-cultural influences is not a distraction, but it is a necessity for inclusive and effective education. That's all po.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am Jen, would you like to uh,
It's Sir Chris po,
or
nakakapag o
Yes, ma'am.
conclusion.
uh,
So as to conclude, to the negative side, gender and social cultural influences should never explicitly address in the curriculum for the reason that social sensitivity is important. PE should not become overloaded with social cultural debates. Let physical education remain focused on promoting lifelong fitness, cooperation, and enjoyment. Values that transcend cultural and gender differences. That would be all. Thank you.
thank you all for your insights, ladies and gentlemen, for the topic 3 on gender and social cultural influences. Now, let's move on to the fourth round of our debate on the topic um, curriculum adaptation for students with disabilities. So, the question here is, should the PE curriculum be adapted to accommodate students with disabilities? So do we have now the identified participants? Ma'am Claudette, do we have now identified participants
Yes,
for this
ma'am.
topic?
Yes, ma'am. We
Okay.
have Sir James and Ma'am Cherry, and we have Ma'am City and Sir Jimmy.
Con po ako.
Okay. So, yeah. Ma'am Cherry, con ka Ma'am Cherry.
Yes po, ma'am. Con.
Okay. And Sir Jimmy, tama ba?
Yes, ma'am. Con po.
Okay, yeah. So, the will be, or the negative side will be Ma'am Cherry Bautista and Mr. Jimmy S. Yanuyan. And for our pro or affirmative side, we have Miss City and Mr. James Batuampo. Tama po ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Are you now ready? So again, let me remind you of the parts, the important parts of the deliberation. So you have to start with the opening statement or the introduction, followed by the arguments. And in the arguments, you must have to at least give example, no, for your arguments, and of course, um, uh, later on after both sides presented. So you will have to end with a conclusion. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, may I now call in the affirmative side or the pro side on the PE curriculum, no? They are really into PE curriculum adapted to accommodate students with disabilities. Okay, you may now start.
Me, I, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity and to start to begin with our debate
Clay.
this one. We firmly support adapting the PE curriculum to accommodate students with disabilities. Physical education should be, number one, be inclusive. The second one should be equitable. And the third one, accessible to all learners, regardless of physical, cognitive, and sensory challenges. As well as, it is both a legal and moral imperative to ensure no student is left behind. Thank you. For argument, Ma'am
Ma'am
Siti.
Okay, for the argument, we have three identified, and the first one is adopting the PE curriculum that promotes full participation, modifying games, equipment, or instructions that allows students with the disabilities to engage meaningfully, not just as spectators, but as an active participants. And that is according to Cheryl 2004. For our second argument, it supports physical, emotional, and social development. So, inclusive PE builds confidence. It encourages peer interaction and foster a sense of achievement among students with special needs. And for the third argument, we have curriculum adaptation aligns with inclusive education policies and disability rights laws such as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act or the IDEA, schools are legally and ethically responsible for providing appropriate learning opportunities to all. That will be all. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you for your arguments, no, in the affirmative side. So we now proceed to the negative side, no, against mandated curriculum adaptation. So who will start with the opening statement?
Can I, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so once again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the affirmative side. So while we advocate for respect and, as what we have said, inclusive, equitable, and accessible learning, uh, for our students, we caution against heavily adapting the PE curriculum for students with disabilities in a way that this compromises the quality of instruction or the learning experiences of others. That's all po. Thank you.
Ma'am Cherry, for the argument.
Thank you, Sir Jimmy, for the introduction. Now we stand for the con side. While we support inclusive practices in education, we oppose policies that mandate full inclusion in PE students with disabilities without considering practicality, safety, and educational outcomes. Here are our arguments. First, full inclusion may not always be the safest or most effective option. Some students with severe physical or cognitive disabilities could be at risk in high intensity activities, even with modification, and may benefit it from more specialized adaptive physical programs. Second, forcing full inclusion without adequate resources, such as trained aides, adaptive equipment, or smaller class sizes, place undue strain on teachers and may result in adequate attention for all students, including those with or without disabilities. Lastly, Mandatory full inclusion could dilute the competitive and skill building aspects of PE for other students. While inclusion is valuable, it should not come at the expense of a meaningful physical education experience for the broader student population.
Thank you very much for your insights. May we call in the pro side to give their concluding statement.
Ni
Okay.
ay, ma'am.
I thought ako.
Ay, sige, ma'am. You can, ma'am. You can po.
Okay, thank you. In conclusion, adapting physical education curriculum for students with disabilities is not just beneficial, it is necessary. It reflects a commitment to inclusion, promotes equity, and empowers all students to enjoy the benefits of the physical activity. That's all. Thank you po.
Very well said, Ma'am City. Who will give the concluding statement from the con side?
May I, Sir Jim?
Yes, ma'am, you go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, no, while we push the full inclusion in PE classes comes from a place of compassion, we must ask ourselves, at what cost? True equity does not mean forcing every student into the same molds. It means providing the right environment for each individual to thrive. So mandating rigid adaptation or full inclusion without proper support risks compromising safety, undermining teaching effectiveness, and diminishing the quality of PE for all students. Instead of blanket mandates, we should empower educators with flexibility, resources, and trainings to make case-to-case decisions that balance inclusion with meaningful participation. So the choice is clear. Support adaptable solutions, not rigid mandates.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am Cherry, for that very insightful and appreciative concluding statement. Now, we are done with the 4 topics, no, the subtopics on the critical issues in the curriculum and instruction in physical education. So with the topic on curriculum adaptation for students with disabilities as the 4th topic. So may I now invite reflections from our audiences. Maybe those who were not able to participate in the debate, do you have something to say something or a reflection on the topic, on this critical topic, curriculum and instruction in physical education? If none, maybe we can, okay. If none, maybe we can invite Ms. Claudette to give us the generalization of the topics.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, my dear classmates, for providing us different insights, mapa pros man yan or cons. Now, I will discuss to you the specific and specific generalization of all the topics na-debate natin. The first one is diversity, equity, and inclusion in PE curriculum, or we call this again as DEI. The question earlier was, should diversity, equity, and inclusion be explicitly integrated into the PE curriculum? We have to remember that DEI emphasizes the fair representation and treatment of all the students. It ensures that students are equally represented in classrooms, workplaces, and
Ma'am Claudette, nawala ka.
DEI in PE can mean recognizing different cultural games, allowing flexible uniforms for religious or gender-related reasons, and ensuring all students feel respected and included during physical activities. Some of you might argue, particularly in gender-related reasons. May mga schools kasi that they are already allowing the students to wear what they want. For example, yung mga gays, they are wearing female na mga damit. But there are also schools na bawal talaga even sa haircut. But again, we have to remember that it's still aligned with the values of the school. Now, let us remember that on this particular topic, we have laws and policies, and it is embedded on the topic that we discussed. First one, we have RA 10533, as mentioned earlier, which calls for a learner-centered curriculum that respects diversity and promotes inclusive education. And we also have UNESCO's Quality PE Guidelines, and this is international, hindi lang sa atin ito, which advocates for PE programs that promote equity, diversity, and inclusion. I principles help PE become a space where all students thrive physically, socially, and emotionally. Again, we wanted PE as a venue to make our students more humane and it should be engaging. Hindi dapat siya yung space or yung venue kung saan nagkakaroon tayo ng mga bullies, nagkakaroon tayo ng pagkakawatak-watak. That's the first one. Second one, we have culturally responsive pedagogy. Remember that when we say culturally responsive therapy, it means that we incorporate students' cultural backgrounds into teaching strategies and content. And in PE, this could be involve integrating indigenous dances, as mentioned by Sir James earlier, as modesty or gender roles in sports. Right now, in Matatag curriculum, wanted that our curriculum and our topics, including our activities, must be aligned with the context that we have in the surroundings. So, ibig sabihin, dapat ang atin din sa PE could be contextualized. Usually kasi sa atin here in the Philippines, we wanted sports, particularly yung mga nasa Western na countries, and we neglect our own na mga activities. And usually, nawawala o nawawala yung culture natin dito sa Pilipinas. And again, this is rooted
Nawala yata si ma'am. Nawala si
make sure that indigenous na mga games and activities are included in organization, hindi lang puro ng mga sports like basketball, volleyball, and so on. And again, RA 105, which requires contextualized learning materials that reflect local culture. And again, DepEd Order number 32 series of 2015, which encourages the use of contextualized learning materials in PE and other subjects, which was mentioned earlier. Next one, for the third topic, we were able to discuss gender and social cultural influences. Now, addressing gender and social cultural influences means discussing how culture, beliefs, and gender roles affect students' participation in PE. For instance, some girls may be hesitant to join mixed gender sports, and some boys may feel pressured to overperform. Sometimes we wanted the boys to be in this particular sports. Kung, for example, if you are gay, hindi ka pwedeng mag-basketball. May mga ganyan tayo na mga mindset. But the argument right now, particularly on gender, is pwede bang ang lalaki sa pangbabae na sport? Pwede ba mag-join ang babae sa panlalaki na sports? May mga ganyan tayo na argument right now. And isa ito sa mga critical issue right now. And I think the PSC is not yet finalizing their stand about this because yung stand pa rin nila is ang sport is pangbabae talaga, panlalaki, and panglalaki talaga. And again, it is rooted or embedded in our laws and policies, particularly RA 9710 or Magna Carta for of Women, which demands gender sensitivity and removal of gender-based barriers in education. We also have DepEd Order number 32 series of 2017, which is about gender-responsive basic education, which requires schools to implement gender-fair strategies, including in PE. Kasi usually in PE, in terms of sports, puro tayo sa boys. In terms of dance, puro tayo sa girls. So there are some barrier or convention on elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Ang problem lang dito sa ating mga laws, wala pang para sa lalaki. Yun yung isa sa argument natin. And the last one is curriculum adaptation for students with disabilities. We have to remember that when we say adaptation, it means modifying PE content, equipment, or methods so that students with disabilities can participate meaningfully. Kung mapapansin ninyo, ang group ni Ma'am Cherry kanina, they are on the negative side of this adaptation. Bakit? Most of us in the curriculum or in the school, wala pang proper training, wala pang proper equipment. So sometimes we neglect this kind of concerns because we don't have proper knowledge kung paano siya i-facilitate. And usually, kahit na may disabilities, may mga teachers or administrators na hindi siya binibigyan ng diin. Kung mapapansin niyo, and if you can remember, kasi ganito kami sa elementary before. Kapag may hika ka, pag nag-start na ng paglilinis sa school, pag may hika ka, ang ginagawa is hindi ka na mag-clean ng area. Ang gagawin mo na lang is to take note kung sino yung naglinis or hindi. And in many public schools as well, a student who uses a wheelchair may be left out during group sports like volleyball or tag games. As mentioned earlier, isa sa mga concerns natin in terms of PE is the lack of time. Kung bibigyan pa natin ito ng maraming time, yung mga students with disabilities, ideally, hindi kaya. Hindi talaga siya kaya kasi you have to create another strategy for them, another strategy for the other students. Pero again, we have to remember the topic earlier that you have to have outcomes-based na strategies. Tinitingnan mo na kaagad yung end. Kung may mga ganitong students ka, dapat alam mo na kung ano yung mga activities mo para along the way, hindi ka mahihirapan. And again, this topic is anchored with different laws we have, particularly RA 11650, which is Inclusive Education Act of 2022, which mandates adapted programs and services for learners with disabilities. We also have RA 7277 or Magna Carta for Persons with Disability, which ensures equal participation in recreational and PE activities. And we have UNCRPD or particularly Article 30, which requires equal access to PE and sports for persons with disabilities. That would be all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am Claudette, for that very comprehensive generalization. So, before we adjourn, no,